Students, now we are going to describe the second part of our today's video. Actually, we are going to describe the reproduction in coelenterates, and the basic common type of reproduction in coelenterates is sexual mode of reproduction. But coelenterates can also reproduce through asexual reproduction by means of budding. So budding is the process of asexual reproduction. That is a process of asexual reproduction, and I hope you have a pre-mindset regarding budding from class 10. So it is your homework to describe whatever the exact process of budding in hydra. Second process, that is, as I told you, the hydra and other coelenterates can also probably reproduces through sexual reproduction. Then the sexual reproduction is performed through the process of gamete formation. That is the gamete formation. So hydra as well as other coelenterates may have the ability of asexual and sexual type of reproduction, but the life cycle, as you all know, the reproduction bring the process of life cycle in the every kinds of organism. So reproduction in coelenterates also perform a very special key point for the life cycle. Then the life cycle of coelenterates can be characterized by having a very specific phenomenon. That phenomenon is known as polymorphism. That phenomenon is known as polymorphism. The characteristics of life cycle of coelenterates is polymorphism. What is polymorphism? It is very important question regarding the class 11th as well as the next upcoming few classes. Poly means many, and morph means the form. Form means there are different shape. For example, as you all know, this one is the writing material. With the help of marker we can able to write, and this is the sketch pen by which we can also able to write, and this is the general pen through which it is possible to write. So there are the single things that the overall common function in them is they all probably use for the writing, but they has the different morphology. That is the thick, that is the thin and very thin structure. So if the single organisms possess different form of their life, different form of their body design in the same lifespan, then that phenomenon is known as polymorphism. For example, suppose that this is the living organisms and it give a birth of a baby, and baby is similar to this, and later when baby become adult, then it become this, and it become senescence, then it become this, but during adult it gives a new baby that will be this. It means in the same life cycle, this is the young one, and that is the adult one, and that is the senescence, that is old age stage. In the same lifespan, you can see the single organisms may have three form of life. So these kinds of organisms are known as to show the polymorphism, and this is a common points and key points of the coelenterates. Now we will able to describe the definition of polymorphism. It is very easy. So write down phenomenon in which different life form found in the lifespan of similar living being. Keep in mind, phenomenon in which different life form found in the lifespan of similar living being. It is not a different. The 1, 2, 3 is not a different other living being. It is the lifespan and different form of the single living being. Now next heading will be the polymorphism in coelenterates. So your heading should be polymorphism in coelenterate. Now polymorphism of coelenterate. The definition is over. Now back to explanation. Actually, in the lifespan of coelenterates, the sessile and motile stage of the lifespan comes one after another. The sessile and motile. Sessile means the condition when an object remains fixed at a place is known as sessile, and motile the condition in which an object can change their position according to time, that is called motile phase. So this is the movable phase and this is the non-movable phase of the coelenterates. Some of the organisms actually cannot move and they remain fixed as a particular place. That organisms is known as sessile organisms. The sessile stage of coelenterates is known as polyp. So you should keep in your mind the polyp stage is actually the sessile stage of coelenterates, and motile stage of coelenterate is known as medusa. Medusa is the motile stage, very easy to learn, M for motile, M for medusa, and polyp is the sessile stage. So you should learn whatever the sessile and motile. Now back to the structure of polyp. When you draw the structure of polyp, you will find the probably similar structure as like the hydra. So their hydra is actually as like the fixed bottom and having a tentacles. Listen, this is the stage of polyp. This is the polyp stage. So example of polyp stage is Obelia, Hydra, Adamsia, that is the brain coral. So Obelia, Hydra and Adamsia are different other stage of polyp. Now back to the Medusa stage. The structure of Medusa is very complicated and it is very hard to drive. It is very hard to draw, but let us try to draw the polyp stage, Medusa stage of coelenterate. Actually, it is very complicated than the common polyp. This one is the Medusa. When you draw it, find the disc shape structure. The disc shape structure. This one is the arm, and that represent the tentacles. There are so many tentacles are found. These are the tentacles as like the common tentacles in Hydra, and that is actually the gonad. So this is the simple structure of the Hydra polyp structure. That is the Medusa. Keep in mind, Medusa, that is motile of the coelenterata. This is the gonad. Gonad means the reproductive organs. In male, it produces sperm, and in female, it produces egg cell. This one is the body of Medusa, and this is the oral arm. Oral arm, and this one is the tentacle. So these are the different. Keep in mind, sometime in PMT examination the number of gonad is 4 in number. It may be asked. So this is the common structure of a Medusa. Common structure of Medusa, and this is the common structure of polyp. It can move throughout the different part of aquatic body with the help of oral arm, and this cannot move. This can have a fixed place at their particular area. The example of Medusa is jellyfish, that is Aurelia. Aurelia, that is jellyfish. Now back to see how the polyp and Medusa comes in the same life cycle after one another. Actually, the polyp, listen, keep in mind, the polyp by means of asexual reproduction, by means of asexual reproduction form Medusa, and Medusa by means of sexual reproduction form polyp. It should be noted down by you. Polyp by means of asexual reproduction form Medusa, and Medusa by means of sexual reproduction form polyp. It means polyp able to form Medusa by means of asexual reproduction, and Medusa by means of sexual reproduction form polyp. How the magic happened, it will be discussed just after the snapshot by you. So make a snapshot for the particular structure and particular complications for the polyp to Medusa and Medusa to polyp. Now let's check how do the polyp convert Medusa and Medusa convert itself into polyp. Actually, the fixed sessile structure is the polyp. It is somehow the hydra-like structure, but it may be the Obelia, it may be the Adamsia. So after some time, there is a bud develop at the particular place of the this one is the polyp stage, at the particular place of polyp. So the polyp of coelenterates earlier develop a bud Bud means a new growth or new cellular outgrowth, and later this bud form a very special structure. That structure is known as Medusa bud. Medusa bud. Often during the budding process in Hydra, the bud later detached from the body of Hydra and form new organisms, new Hydra. But in this way, there is the pouch-like structure developed at the region of bud of polyp, that is known as Medusa bud. And inside the Medusa bud, several new type of Medusa develop. That is actually the newly form of Medusa. At the time of maturity, the Medusa released out. That is the Medusa inside the Medusa bud. There will be the Medusa bud, and inside the Medusa there is the many Medusa are actually developed. The plural of Medusa is Medusae. Several Medusae develop, and then after maturity the Medusa overall buds get burst, and the each of Medusa released out to form a free swimming Ephyra larva. When it released out, then it able to move place to place with the help of several newly grow tentacles. That is known as Ephyra of Medusa. That is Ephyra larva. So Ephyra larva is the characteristic features of Medusa. Listen, and then Ephyra larva having a ability to move from the place to place, from the different part of the aquatic environment. It will later attach itself over the surface of, it will not attach, it will actually later become mature to form the Medusa, as like the common Aurelia, as like the common jellyfish. So it has the male, some of the Ephyra become male and some of the Ephyra become female. Listen, when it will be released out from the Medusa, then it after some time it move throughout the aquatic habitat for the feeding and for their maturity. Then it become mature. Some of the Ephyra become male and some of the Ephyra become female. The male through its gonad release sperm. The male through its gonad release sperm, and the female through its gonad release egg cell, and both fuse to form zygote, and that zygote later develop embryo, and embryo form further a free swimming larva. It form further a free swimming larva, but it is different than the Ephyra. The new name of this larva is actually the planula larva. Planula larva. So how do the planula larva form? By the fusion of sperm and egg cells produced from the Ephyra larva. That is the produced from the Medusa. When the Ephyra become mature, it form the Medusa, and then before Medusa, the early stage is actually Ephyra. Then the male Medusa release sperm and female Medusa release egg cells to form the zygote, and zygote later form embryo, and embryo further form a free swimming larva, and that larva is actually diploid and planula. Later, after the free swimming throughout the different part of aquatic habitat, it fix itself over the substratum, over a place it fix itself. That is the planula, and that is the substratum. It may be the rock or it may be the sand. Then fix itself to the substratum and grow to become the polyp. So this is the overall structure in which the sessile, that is sessile polyp and motile Medusa comes one after another. That is the diagrammatic representation of polymorphism in coelenterates. It should be remembered and it should be learned by you very easily through the resuming of different times of the video. Thank you.